I got all I want, and I got all I need, and I got everything. I got you and me. All I want, I got all I need.
Marriage really is the best, even though it is so very difficult and so nuanced, and there are so many variables that go into making marriage work. It is truly one of the most important gifts that we give ourselves is a healthy marriage. It is the most important gift that we give our children. And when it comes to longevity of life, it's probably the thing that makes the most difference, or one of the things that makes the most difference long term in our lives, right? So you think of like the impact of marriage in your early 20s, in your mid 20s, in your late 20s, throughout your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and then end of life. Marriage touches every single season in such a deep and profound way. And so it's so important. It's the best, and it's so important. And when we take care of it well, it literally is the most impactful relationship that we have access to here on earth. So I was thinking about marriage today. I was thinking about marriage and communication. I was also thinking about emotional ownership. So we're going to talk a little bit about communication. We're going to talk about emotional ownership. And then we're also going to talk about the problem with dating in 2025. And it is November, so it's going to be the end of 2025. So you may be listening to this in a different time, like 2026. But, the big issue is going to be there nonetheless, because it doesn't really seem like we've got a solution for it. So let's keep going. So when we talk about marriage and emotional ownership, I was thinking about an interaction that I had with Becca today. And I was thinking about how I saw her respond in an emotional way, okay, to going out. So the context is I'm at home. I've got the 5. It was a long day. She'd already been gone for quite a bit of the day, doing fun stuff, good fun stuff. And she gets home and has another thing to go to. And obviously it has just been a long day, whether that's obvious or not. And so there was a response in me, this kind of groaning internally that she was off again, off to go kind of fill up her cup in friendship. And I had feelings about it. Probably just stressed. But other than that, I was mixed, because I really wanted her to go, and I wanted her to go and enjoy herself. I actually, as she left, I said, if you don't come back full in your cup, I will be very frustrated. Because this is what we need, right? Like, you need this time, but if it's not like life-giving and filling you up, then that's not good. So I could see her respond to my response, right? So I'm having these feelings about, her leaving and her going out. And she is having feelings about me having feelings about her going out. She doesn't want to see me feeling frustrated or stressed or kind of overwhelmed at the prospect of, being alone and hanging out with everybody and managing the whole rest of the evening. So I saw this interesting cycle, and I've seen it play out in the past, right? This is just kind of there was awareness around it, where her emotional state of like, I don't want you to feel bad, but I really want to go, and I know I need to go, and I am going to go, but I don't want you to feel the way that you're feeling about it. And then me to her, I'm feeling this same kind of thing. I'm like, I want you to go for you, and yet I need to know that, that it's, and yet I'm kind of stressed about it, and I have these feelings about doing the rest of the night alone and just being stressed and tired. And I was thinking thereafter how important it was for me to take ownership of my emotional state and not to take ownership of hers. And I was thinking about how even more so, it's important for her not to take on my emotional state in that moment, and for her to be able to kind of separate herself and feel free to not manage the me part. I had parts of that interaction to manage. It was my stress, my fatigue, my anticipation or whatever of the rest of the evening and just taking care of everybody. My anxiety around her not getting what she needed to fill her cup so that it was like beneficial for her to leave due to the nature of the sacrifice of just time and energy and whatnot. So so I had to manage all of those things. If I mismanage and put those things on her, right, then all of a sudden she can't leave freely. She can't leave and enjoy herself. She can't leave and engage, and it can't be as beneficial because she doesn't have the freedom to like go and do and be and enjoy. And so there's this role that I'm playing that if I'm mismanaging my stuff, then it can be kind of throw the system off. And then if she's mismanaging her stuff, right, if she's not giving herself permission to go, if she's not living in that freedom, if she's not letting me kind of have the freedom of my own response, while also, right, so I have the freedom to respond the way that I'm responding, so I can acknowledge that, like she can acknowledge that, but she doesn't have to take it with her. She doesn't have to say, oh, is this right? Second guess it? Should I really leave? And, oh, he's stressed or overwhelmed or whatnot, because that was I was okay. It wasn't that I wasn't going to be okay. And I was okay to manage even my own response. And so if we take this moment of leaving and the principles surrounding emotional ownership, where we each have our individual feelings, and that's fine, and we're each responsible for the way that we respond, the feelings that we have, the thoughts that we, are moving through, and how that impacts our behavior. I've seen this work really poorly in the past within our context when her anxiety, when I take kind of more ownership over the way that she's feeling, right? So maybe she's anxious about something. It could be a number of things. And when I experience her anxiety and kind of accept it as something that is mine to manage, I put myself in this kind of inappropriate position, inappropriate role of managing her anxiety rather than responding to her anxiety well. I can respond really well to Becca's anxiety, but I can't manage it for her. I can acknowledge it and sit with it and maybe be like a helpmate in moving through her feelings by listening, by seeing and hearing and understanding and knowing her, right? That kind of emotional intimacy that we talked about a few episodes ago. So I can do that, right? Seek to see, seek to hear, seek to understand, seek to know. But in none of that is it my responsibility to go in and manage her part, manage her part, her feelings and thoughts and experience and stress. Those aren't mine. They're hers. They're hers to manage, and I can't manage them for her. Whenever I, in the past, have attempted to manage Becca's stress or feelings or anxiety for her rather than just know her in them, right? Like see and hear those things inside of her, acknowledge them, understand them, and kind of lovingly, gently connect with her in her own process. When I do that well, then I don't carry any like shame or inadequacy for what's going on inside of her. But if I take her stuff onto myself and almost make it my own, then that creates this deep sense of disconnect and shame and inadequacy. It can very easily make me, and then the men that I've served in counseling, kind of feel that sense of inadequacy within ourselves. Like, if we were enough, then you wouldn't have to feel this way. It's kind of the way that I like to describe it. So understanding whose is what's, whose is this and whose is that, and how to kind of move through and take ownership of your part, while also just like seeing and hearing the other part. Now, what I'm not saying is that there shouldn't be influence, right? Like, if your partner's really suffering or struggling, just recently, Becca had requested, something specific in the way that we function around work. And it's not like I can just say, oh, that's just like her stuff. Like, that's those are her feelings. Those are her desires for me to like orient our schedule in that way. That's not that helpful, because then I'm not really like doing that emotional intimacy work. When I know her and I know what's going on with her, and then she makes a request and we're feeling connected and loved in our relationship, then I want to be impacted by that. I want it to influence me. And so there's this nuance idea surrounding, what does it look like to take ownership of my partner's emotions? And what does it look like to give influence or receive influence from them, from their emotions and what I know to be true about them? So let's try that out. Let's try and see if we can't kind of hash that out. When I saw her respond to my response, I immediately went to, hey, like, it's okay that I feel stressed. You are still free to go. So I saw and understood where she was coming from and like what she was feeling. And then I spoke directly at that feeling that I was witnessing kind of move through her. And I was able to say, hey, remember, that's mine. So that was me taking ownership of my own emotions and supporting her in what I saw going on inside of her. When it comes to her request around work, hearing her means I really need to consider the points that she's making and the values that she's coming at this problem of how do we schedule and how work functions in our family life. And so it doesn't mean that I just take exactly what she said and then I model work around that, because she only has part of the variables and I have the other part of those variables. I manage more of the financial, and we're a single income family. And so it's really up to me to make sure that we're setting ourselves not only up, setting up ourselves for success right now, but also into the future. And as I think that through, I'm not only thinking the financial setup, but I'm also thinking the emotional setup. So if she's saying, I don't think that X is emotionally sustainable because of these reasons, this is my observation, this is the impact that it's having on me, ownership would be like, oh, you're saying I'm not doing enough. Why isn't it enough for you, right? Like, why isn't it okay that I'm just working this way? And I would get frustrated with her. I would get furious and not curious, as my friend Steve likes to say. And that furious part is in part the shame and inadequacy that I'm feeling around her request to update the way that we're working. It's also in part a mismanagement of the emotional ownership in the relationship. I'm not taking ownership and responsibility for my own thoughts and feelings, sharing my variables, and engaging in dialogue around difficult issues. And I'm also taking, part of the reason that I'm feeling that big like shame and inadequacy is I'm taking on the emotional ownership of her instead of having my own thoughts and feelings about it and being able to express those in a gentle and clear way. I am kind of absorbing her emotions, her frustration, her lack of contentment, her anxiety, her stress, and it's kind of absorbing into me and causing an emotional response that I am then not managing very well. And then it comes out as this idea of like, why are you making me feel this way? I feel inadequate when you do that. And then that kind of breaks down our ability to be emotionally intimate, because if you're making me feel ashamed and inadequate, then you're not seeing and hearing and understanding and knowing me. And I am less likely to want to see and hear and understand and know you. And so there's that kind of balance between taking ownership and responsibility, but not absorbing the other person's ownership and responsibility for their own process. So there's a bit of a connection between the emotional ownership, who takes what, the fear and shame cycle, and how those things kind of interact and play off of one another in order to keep us disconnected and distant in our relationship. So, working through and understanding what is mine that's a big kind of ask. And I think it comes down to knowing yourself really well, like really truly understanding what your thoughts, feelings, and experiences are, and then being able to very clearly and gently express those things to our partners. So you have to really know and understand who you are and where you are so that you know what your thoughts and feelings are, what they sound like, what they feel like, where they're coming from. So that's kind of an emotionally intelligent, kind of mature response. And then knowing your stuff makes it more clear, I think, what the other person's stuff is, right? Like, oh, I'm not anxious. Becca is anxious. I don't feel like I'm second guessing myself in this area, but she is. And because I believe she is well-intentioned toward me, she, is even positive in her intention. I guess that's the same thing as well-intentioned. But she's positive in her intentions toward me. Then I don't have to absorb the thoughts and feelings that she is kind of sending my way as some sort of indictment on me, but more of a reflection of her. I use the idea of reflection a lot actually in session, trying to find like what is a reflection of me and what is a reflection of you. So it's a little bit different language that you can use to kind of understand where something is coming from. Working with a couple this week, we hit some kind of rocky patches for things, and it was difficult. It was really difficult. I'm very passionate and I care a lot about the couples that I work with and the marriages that I work on. And so sometimes that passion comes out as frustration. Sometimes that passion comes out as passion. Sometimes that passion comes out as all sorts of different things. And this week there was a difficult session where we were just trying to work through some taking of ownership and some emotional management, and mismanaging some of the emotional ownership can actually cause a lot of hurt in our relationships, even when the last thing that we want is to cause hurt in our relationships. Our own management of our feelings, where we're coming from, our emotions, they can often be used as weapons if they're used kind of in a harsh or bitter manner, right? You've hurt me, so I'm kind of sending it back to you. And that, again, it just kind of goes back to undermining our ability to be emotionally intimate and connected, to build trust, to build the dynamics of feeling really seen and heard and understood and known in our relationships. And it's very difficult to work through at times because there's so many variables and factors that are coming into play that make it very difficult to respond well, to take ownership well, to set up the proper kind of internal strength to not take on what isn't yours, but to also take ownership of your own, what you're bringing into that picture, what reflects you. So knowing yourself really well will help you to then delineate between what is my thought, feeling, experience, and why am I, where are those responses coming from when I do respond, and what is not mine. What is Becca? What is Becca, responding to her own family of origin? What is Becca responding to her own dad? What is Becca responding to, like her mom maybe, or like their relationship and not ours? And it's not like I spend any time psychoanalyzing my wife. I really don't. And I try to make sure that my clients are at the office and my family is a very separate thing, so that I'm not ever perceived as a counselor at home. I don't want to be perceived as that. I want to be perceived as a present dad and an engaged dad and a caring husband and a mindful husband. And oftentimes I am falling short and need lots of grace, and the moments where, it doesn't go that well. So I hope that the idea of emotional ownership and responsibility within that, and understanding where your ownership begins and ends and where your partner's begins and ends, is helpful in helping you to manage your own responses and and the emotional intimacy that you're looking to create in your marriage. And when we understand this well and are executing on it well, it is a huge blessing to our partners and increases our emotional intimacy and connection. So there's your tool. There's your cast. I hope that you enjoyed it today. If you want to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, that'd be fantastic. If you want to look at Spotify and hit the 5-star deal, that would be very much appreciated. And we will catch you next time. Over and out. That's what I wanted to say. Don't say that. That's terrible. Don't say that. This is the end.
I got you.